Well, thank you very much indeed. Good evening, Bolton. As I arrived in the town square today, in my usual understated way, on an open-top double-decker, it was great to see hundreds of people out there in the rain and the drizzle, people that care, people in Bolton that know that something has fundamentally gone wrong in our country and that something needs to be done to change it. And 20 years ago, I was a businessman. I wasn't in politics, but it seemed to me that we'd made a massive historical mistake. We'd signed ourselves up, basically through a pack of lies, that it was going to be a common market, there was nothing to worry about. We'd signed ourselves up to a political project that was taking away from us our birthright, our ability to be the people that govern our own country and make our own laws. And 20 years ago, I determined I would fight my damnedest to get my country back. And I'm proud we've got this referendum. Now, after all these years in politics, I suppose I have become quite cynical about the political class, their relationship with big business, with big money, and yet, even I am astonished at the depths they're sinking to in this referendum campaign. Today we had the Institute of Fiscal Studies telling us there could be a 2-year recession if we leave the European Union. What, of course, the BBC... Come on, liven up, really. What, of course, the BBC did not tell you in their early morning broadcasts is that the Institute of Fiscal Studies have taken over £7 million of EU funding in the last 10 years. And we see the same from the OECD and the IMF and all these global institutions. They're staffed with overpaid failures from domestic politics, and they're using our money to tell us what we should think and what we should do. And frankly, I believe that to be immoral and disgraceful. And then we have the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Hasty-faced George, isn't he? The man who, since he became Chancellor, has doubled our national debt. The man who every single prediction he makes has been wrong. And yet now he tells us that by 2030 we'll all be worse off by £4,000 every household. I mean, when you're as rich as George, I guess you could even put a nought on the end, couldn't you? These forecasts we're getting from Osborne are ridiculous. And I was told the other day, the only reason that we have financial forecasts from George Osborne is that he wants to make astrology look good. But far worse than the IFS, the OECD, the IMF, and all these dreadful people, far worse than President Obama. President Obama came, and that was the day that Project Fear became Project Threat. And I'm grateful to Obama, because as a result of his visit, the Brexit vote went up by nearly 3%. Can he come back again, please, before June? But the worst of all, the worst by a country mile, is the man that you just saw on that video. The man who was twisted and turned on this European question. The man who said just a few months ago that all things were possible, that he may well decide to support the Brexit case if he didn't get enough piddling concessions from Brussels. And the very same man who said that actually, said it in January this year, do not ask me to say that Britain could not prosper outside the European Union. I believe and I know that it could. But the man that now tells us that it will be a financial disaster and it could even cause World War III. Shame on you, Mr. Cameron. Shame on you. It is a shocking thing to say about a British Prime Minister, but frankly, I don't think he's telling the truth about anything. You know, sorry, what was that word? Well, I must say, Mr. Chairman, I mean, the very thought of the British Prime Minister being a liar. Is this really what you think? Oh, well, if that's the case. Now, I do have a debate with him on the 7th of June on ITV, don't I? So that's right, the man who spent 10 years campaigning for Turkey to be a member of the European Union and then tries to imply he might veto it. I think, given the advice that I've got from this crowd in Bolton this evening, when I see him at ITV on June the 7th, I'm going to tell him exactly what you and the rest of this country thinks. You have my word. So this group of overeducated, privileged college kids who have never done a day's work in their lives are telling us that trade would be damaged, are telling us that the British economy would suffer a serious hit if we didn't stay part of this political union. Let me tell you, as somebody who spent 20 years in business, and I've bought and sold goods and products and shipped things out of Rotterdam and elsewhere all over the world. I know more about trade than this lot added up together and multiplied by 10. Trade happens because consumers decide they want to buy a product. They trust the product, they like the product, and they're prepared to pay the price. That is how trade happens. I knew, as somebody running a company, that the customer was king. Well, let's have a look at this relationship with the European Union. Look how many German motor cars there are driving on our roads. Look how much French wine others drink every single week. And understand that we are now the Eurozone's biggest export market in the world. They trade with us at a deficit of over £60 billion a year. They need us far more than we need them, and trade with the EU will be unaffected. But you see, back in 1975, in that last referendum that I was too young to vote in, I was. What's the matter with you? Back in that referendum, what our political class did is they hid the political agenda by simply talking about it being, remember, a common market. They told the British people, this is just about trade, it's not about politics, don't worry your little heads. And 41 years on, in this referendum, they are telling you that this referendum is all about trade and jobs and investment, and they don't wish to discuss politics or open borders. They are trying to play the same trick on you again. I want to put this to you. This referendum is not about economics, because nobody can predict the certainties of what will happen if we stay in the European Union or if we leave the European Union. As Dr. Johnson said all those years ago, the only two certainties in life are death and taxes. But what I can tell you for certain is this referendum is about one simple, very straightforward, but absolutely fundamental thing. This referendum is about who governs Britain. That is what this referendum is really all about. And I believe that in the name of trade, that in the name of economics, what has happened is we've had a coming together of career politicians, of giant multinational companies who couldn't care less about this country or its people, and their friends in the big banks like Goldman Sachs. The wealthy, vested interests like the world exactly the way that it is. And this referendum can be defined very simply. It is ordinary people and small businesses in this country against the enriched establishment. This is the battle that we face, and I am on the side of the people. And if ever voting in an election mattered because it could fundamentally change your future and your lives, then it is this referendum. If we can beat this establishment, we get back so much of what they have given away. And look what they've given away. They've given away our birthright. They've given away the very thing that our grandparents and great-grandparents fought and sacrificed so much for in 2 world wars. Our liberty, our freedom, and our independence. They've even given away our passports. That should be a British passport. But what are the first 2 words on it? See, some of you don't know, do you? Well, I said, after tonight, go home, get out your passport and look at it. You'll be shocked, because the first 2 words on it are European Union. That passport isn't just for British people. That passport now is for 508 million people that are members of the European Union. And every single one of them has the ability to come to live, work, settle in this country, use the National Health Service, or have their children educated within our system. We cannot, ladies and gentlemen, go on with our population rising by 500,000 people a year and expect our public services to cope under the strain. We cannot go on with open-door immigration at this level and hope that the wages and living standards of ordinary families can go up. We cannot go on with this level of open-door immigration and not see yet further radical, fundamental changes in our societies, our cultures, and where we live. Our standard of living, our way of life, is being degraded by uncontrolled mass immigration, and the only way we can put a stop to this, the only way we can deal with the #1 concern of voters in this country, is to go out on the 23rd of June, to ignore Cameron and Siemens Engineering and Goldman Sachs and Tony Blair and Peter Mandelson and Michael Heseltine. Oh, the list goes on forever. But the only way we can overcome this is to vote for Brexit. And to do that, we need you to be our people's army. We need you to take leaflets, to take posters. We need you, as Kate said, to speak to people in the supermarkets, to talk to people at your bridge club, your golf club, your working man's club, wherever you go. I myself am taking this campaign around as many pubs as I possibly can. It always works. But get out and talk to people. Drill them into submission. Drag them physically down to the polls. Because the way we win this referendum is to get people out there voting on June the 23rd. And they can speak on the other side as negatively as they like. We are giving a positive, upbeat message. We want our passports back. We want our borders back. We want our country back. We want to leave the European Union. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Not my... Thank you. We want our country back. We want our country back. We want our country back. Thank you.
Enjoy that? Right, Fred. Cool. Oh, go on, give him another round of applause, right?